Good evening, guys. Happy Transformation Tuesday. Chris Jackson here, coming to you live. If you guys are watching the replay, hello. If you guys are coming to me live right now, I appreciate your comments. Give us some love, say hello. Tonight I'm going to be diving deep into emotional mastery. Hey Maddie, how you doing? Dora, how you guys doing? Tonight's emotional mastery, this is the mother skill. This is the ultimate skill to become a professional human being, to get results in life, to transform our reality, to have high quality relationships, to earn more money. This is the ultimate skill to have. Hey Dora. And so I'm going to be distilling what is emotional mastery, what is emotional intelligence. Hey Heidi, how you guys doing? Good to have you here. What is emotional mastery? How do we cultivate higher levels of emotional intelligence? What is emotional intelligence? Why is it important? And the most important thing is, how do we improve it? How do we boost it? Because the great thing about emotional mastery and emotional intelligence is that we can boost it through the roof. Our emotional intelligence and our emotional mastery is a skill set. It is a skill set. So it's different from IQ, and I'll explain a bit more about how it's different from IQ, the benefits of emotional mastery, the benefits of emotional intelligence, and I'm going to dive in and dive into adding a heap of value to you guys, because this is going to change the game for you. This is going to change your results. This is going to improve your income. This is going to improve your relationships. This is going to improve your productivity. This goes across the board. So this is a powerful topic, and I'm excited, as you can tell. This is a game changer. When I discovered emotional intelligence and how to improve our emotional intelligence, massive differences across every single dimension of my life. So without further ado, let's dive into, well, what is emotional intelligence? And I'm going to use the word emotional intelligence and emotional mastery interchangeably here. There is some subtle differences, but let's just go with that for now. This is a huge topic. If I was going to do this topic justice, this would be probably a 5-day workshop. So we're just going to keep this really short, probably 20 minutes tonight. I'm going to go deep. So emotional intelligence. The definition I'm using for emotional intelligence is it's a measure of your ability to sense, to understand, and effectively apply the power and acumen of your emotions and the emotions of others in order to facilitate high levels of collaboration and productivity. What the hell does that mean? Well, to put it simply, it's the ability to get shit done. It's the ability to master our life. It's the ability to communicate. It's the ability for us to not only get stuff done for ourselves, but also influence and contribute and collaborate with others. So it's the master skill. Now, I'm going to give you some stats. I want to give you some examples here of what it is and what it is not. So EQ is totally different to IQ. Your IQ, which is completely different, your IQ is more to do with how you actually process cognitively, logically, analytically, whereas emotional intelligence is totally different. It's our awareness of our own emotions. It's awareness of our understanding of how we do emotion, what emotion we're experiencing. So it's a culmination of different factors, which is totally different. We're using a whole different part of our brain, a whole different skill set. And I'm going to expand into what I mean in more detail as we go through. So your EQ is different from IQ because your EQ can improve. You can grow your EQ very easily. Your emotional intelligence can improve, and again, the way that you measure EQ is based on a points-based system. So your EQ will go up by a point when you improve your ability to understand yourself, your ability to be aware of your emotions, your ability to control your emotions, your ability to communicate your emotions, your ability to understand emotions. So you can actually measure your EQ in the same way as you can measure your IQ. So you both of these have tests that you can tell what your IQ and what your EQ is. Now, your EQ is what's driving all of your decisions. Your EQ is what's driving your behavior, your motivation, the mood that you're in comes down to your EQ, your awareness of the mood that you're in, your ability to transform your emotion, the ability to transform your mood. This is all emotional intelligence. So EQ is nothing to do with IQ. IQ reaches its peak roughly around the late teens. So by the time you're 19, 20 years old, your IQ has essentially plateaued, because it's your cognitive ability to process information, process data, solve complex problems. That's your IQ. Your EQ is unlimited. Your EQ is uncapped. You can keep boosting your EQ through the roof. And just like Carol Dweck talks about in her book Mindset, in terms of the growth mindset. So the growth mindset has been proven beyond a shadow of doubt that you can enhance your EQ, you can enhance your emotional control, you can enhance your emotional mastery when you start thinking new thoughts, when you start taking new behaviors. So you can grow your emotional intelligence exponentially. You can grow it through the roof. And I've had experience of clients that have taken an EQ test, and then 6 months later, their growth in their EQ has been phenomenal. It's been like 20 point increase, 30 point increase in their emotional intelligence, which is huge. The reason why that's important is that Forbes Magazine have done, hey Daniel, good to see you here, mate. Forbes Magazine have done studies on EQ, and what they've found is there's a direct correlation between EQ and your income. Direct correlation, which is really, really interesting, because the higher your EQ, the greater your income, the greater your earning capacity. And what they've found is for every EQ point increase that every percent or every 1 point that your EQ goes up by, that correlates to a $1,750 increase in your salary per year. So there's huge benefits here that they've proven through studies about the benefits and the direct correlations between income and EQ. So really important stuff. Now, EQ is also, Forbes Magazine also found that EQ is the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace. So yeah, hey, Heidi, yeah, that's fantastic to know. This is really important. And unfortunately, we never really get told this at school, when this really isn't in the public domain. You don't see TV, you don't see, on ABC News tonight, you're not seeing, hey, there's a report published by Forbes Magazine that tells you how great EQ can help you improve your salary. It doesn't happen. Unfortunately, this just isn't in the public domain. So hence why I'm really excited to share this with you. So EQ is the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace as well. So they've done studies on high performance, and what they've found is that it's also the strongest driver of leadership, and it's also the biggest predictor of personal excellence. So there's someone's competency at their job. It's directly correlated. So let's take a look at, now that we're sort of understanding why EQ is important, let's look at what is it? So what is EQ? Well, EQ, emotional intelligence, it consists of 5 major pillars. Now these 5 pillars are a combination of internal factors as well as external factors. So what do I mean? Well, the first major pillar is self-awareness. The second major pillar is self-regulation. The third major pillar is our motivation. The fourth is empathy, and the fifth is social skills. So I'm going to explain and unpack what do I mean by all these aspects, because these are really important. Well, self-awareness, self-regulation, and motivation. These are the internal factors. So this is our internal awareness and our ability to transform and be aware of and shift our emotions, our emotional awareness. Hey Maria, good to see you here. How are you? So self-awareness, it's the ability to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, your drives, and their effect on others. So your self-awareness is critical. If you don't have awareness of what you're experiencing, the emotions that you're experiencing, then good luck. If we don't understand what the emotion is that we're experiencing, how we're experiencing it, and we're not able to label it and say, this is what I'm experiencing, it's very disempowering. And this has been observed in the prison system. A lot of inmates, because they don't have a high degree of emotional awareness, of self-awareness, what they've found is because they didn't have a word for what they're experiencing, which might have been anger or guilt or shame or whatever, because they didn't have a word to accurately label that emotion they're experiencing, they just rounded it to whatever the closest thing they could experience was, which they thought, which for most people is anger. Anger is a common one, and that's why there's a lot of violence, and that's why there's a lot of people that are violently reacting with anger, because they simply haven't got the word to describe what they might have been experiencing. Hey, Daddy, good to see you here, champ. So they might have been experiencing shame. It could have been guilt, might have been sadness, it might have been something because they didn't have the vocabulary or ability to discern and become aware of what they're experiencing. They just felt angry. So they would just take it out with violence. So again, this is a classic example of your vocabulary and your awareness of what emotion you're experiencing is so incredibly important, because you're able to diagnose what is the root cause. You're able to diagnose, well, what am I actually experiencing right now? Rather than just a general discomfort or a general sense of unease or misalignment, you can be very, very specific. Well, what is that emotion I'm experiencing? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it hurt? Is it sadness? Is it resentment? What is it? Very, very powerful when you become aware of the language of how you define your experience, because our experience is, to a large degree, it's created through language. Whether you use the word I'm angry or whether I'm a bit peeved off, huge emotional difference there. So the language that you're using to describe your experience creates your experience. So the availability and the diversity of language, and also the degree of positivity versus negativity of the language you have available, is also going to determine to a large degree your experience of life. So I know I did this for a while. You know, when you go to the checkout, you know, when you go to buy something, people always ask you, oh, how are you going? How's your day? It's just a lot of small talk. And what I did was I substituted the normal standard response, which was, oh, good, yeah, I'm having an okay day. I replaced all my vocabulary with extreme versions of that. Like I said, I was unstoppable. I said, how you going, Chris? I'm unstoppable. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling incredible. I'm feeling amazing. And when you actually express and you actually say that word, you actually get that emotion available to you. So you can actually transform your experience in the moment by using a different word as well. So there's some phenomenal, powerful tools you can use and this is called transformational vocabulary. When you're able to transform all of your words, transform your vocabulary, you shift your whole entire experience of life. So that's self-awareness. The second major pillar is self-regulation. Now this is your ability to regulate your emotions. This is your ability to control or redirect or redistribute your impulses and the moods and your propensity to suspend in judgment and think before acting. So instead of being reactionary, you can now actually start to regulate, hang on, what's this emotion I'm experiencing? What do I want to experience it? Is it a resourceful emotion? Is it a not so resourceful emotion? Do I want to shift it? Do I want to experience it? So when you become aware of it, you can then decide, well, how much do you want to indulge that emotion? Is it resourceful? Is it unresourceful? So really, really powerful awareness. The third aspect of the internal aspects of emotional intelligence is motivation. Now, this is a passion to work beyond reasons for just money or status, and it's the propensity to pursue goals. So with a sense of energy and persistence. So motivation is one of these critical drivers of performance in life. So drop a comment if you can ever relate to having a lack of motivation or just procrastinating or something like that. Well, the experience that you're having was you were lacking the emotion of motivation. So the internal drive to do something, to move forward, that is created through the emotion of motivation. So motivation is a very, very powerful emotion to feel, because if you don't have any motivation, there's no movement, there's no inspiration, there's no action, there's no doing. So motivation is incredibly powerful. So they're the three major pillars, the internal components of emotional intelligence to start with. Thanks to the love, guys. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. The next, love the hearts. The next aspect of the external components in terms of us observing emotions in our external world. The fourth pillar is empathy. So empathy is the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. So we need to be able to aware of, we simply must be aware of what are the emotions that people around me are experiencing. Because if we're not able to tune into their emotions, we miss out on a huge element of connecting with people. Right? So say, for example, if you're rocking up in a relationship and your partner's disenchanted or frustrated or something's going on in their world and you're not able to pick up on something's up with them and they don't always feel comfortable or confident in sharing that, if you're not able to pick up on that, then kind of it's obliviousness. It's disempowerment, because it's now, well, I've got no idea what your emotional experiences is, so I am now disconnected with you. So empathy and having an understanding of whatever someone else is experiencing is so important in order to be a leader, in order to be a friend, in order to communicate. We've got to know what's that person experiencing to know, well, how do I approach this communication? Thanks, Daddy. Love the love hearts. So we've got to understand what's their experience, what's their emotion, so I know, how do I approach this? Do I need to go in with some compassion? Do I need to go in with some humor? Do I need to approach this? Maybe I need to give them some space. Who knows? So this is where we have that emotional awareness of someone else's emotional state. So incredibly powerful. Now, we don't always know that. Now, this is where it's a skill. We have to cultivate this. It's an awareness. The awareness of someone else's emotional state is a skill. Now, to a degree, sometimes we're mind reading, but what we've got to then do is through communication skills, through rapport, through understanding body language, we can now start to pick up on what's actually going on in their internal world. Good stuff, Teddy. Love it, brother. So now the fifth pillar is social skills. Now, social skills is our proficiency in managing relationships and building relationships. So again, success in life is built on relationships, right? It's built around understanding people. Life is people. So if we don't know people, then we don't know life. And for those of you that are in business, Business is built on relationships. So if you don't know relationships, if you don't know business, you're out of business. If you don't know how to build relationships with people, then you're out of business really, really quickly. So this is critical. Hey, Dora, I got your question here. It's not just about understanding ourselves, also understanding others. Yeah, there's two parts to emotional intelligence. There's understanding ourselves, and there's also understanding the emotional makeup of someone else. So you might be really, really good at understanding yourself. And the emotional quotient assessment that you can do, which is a report where you get a series of questions and it gives you percentages, it gives you rankings in each of these 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. That actually tells you how you're scoring. So some people are stronger internally, other people are stronger externally. So some people are really, really strong at social skills and being empathetic. They can see what's going on in someone else, but they can't see what's going on inside themselves. So great for relationships in terms of being able to be present for the people they care about, however, not so good for themselves. So this is where we need to have discernment and an awareness of, well, where are we strong within each of these 5 pillars of our own emotional intelligence. Now, the key thing here to recognize is the reason why we're even having this conversation in the first place is because when we have mastery, when we have emotional mastery, so mastery of our emotions, we're able to create powerful results across all the different dimensions of our life. Because, as I said before, without motivation, there's no action. Our emotions are creating our actions. Now, let's dive in and understand how this is actually playing out. Because what we're actually doing is we are starting with our whole entire mindset. That's the thing that's driving. That's the starting point. Our mindset, our belief system, the way that we view our reality, our model of the world. That's the very starting point. From that, we then go to thoughts. That generates thoughts. From that, the thoughts generate the emotions. Then the emotions generate the decisions, and then the decisions generate the actions generate the results. So we go back all the way back up the chain, and what we're going to find is, well, the emotions are driving the decisions, but going back there, well, what preceded the emotion? Well, there was a thought that we fired off in our brain that created the emotion. Well, what creates the thought? Well, our model of the world, which is our level of awareness, it's our consciousness, it's our values, it's our belief systems, it's all the past experiences of our lives, it's our language, it's all the decisions and the belief systems that we've cultivated and curated throughout our whole entire upbringing. So we need to go back all the way back up the chain and go, okay, well, there's my whole entire model of the world that's now driving my thoughts, my emotions, my decisions, my actions, my results. So emotional intelligence sort of sits in somewhere here around awareness, that then it's a skill. However, it's only half the game. Actually, it's probably not even that. It's only got a percentage of the game. Hey, Luke. Hey, John. Good to see you here, brother. So emotional intelligence is great because it gives you awareness of what you're experiencing. However, it doesn't necessarily tell you, well, what was the thought that I'm thinking, or what's the belief system or the limiting beliefs or the fears that are generating the thinking that then creates the emotion. So this is where a lot of the tools from NLP and a lot of tools from behavioral psychology come in handy, because we can now love the love. Thanks, brother. We've got to understand, well, what is the thinking? What's the belief system? What's the habits? What's the conditioning? What are all the deeply ingrained unconscious beliefs and value systems that are driving the thoughts that create the emotions, that create the decisions, that create the actions, create the results? So the results are just a downstream consequence as a result of our model of the world. So that's the most important thing. So we need to recognize, well, let's look at an example. Let's just say, for example, we're experiencing anger. Anger is the downstream consequence. So anger is like a volcano erupting. So if you're ever experiencing anger, what you're experiencing is the lava pouring down the outside of the volcano. Now, during the height of the emotional experiencing, that volcano has just blown its top and you're angry. But you've got to look and say, well, hang on, what were the thoughts that were preceding that emotion? And where was I out of alignment to such a degree? Or what do I believe about my reality? Or where am I not taking action? Or how am I constructing my reality such that I even produced the thought that then created the emotion of anger in the first place? So emotions are not just this random thing that happened to us. Emotions are created by thinking patterns that are created by belief systems, by deeply ingrained belief systems. So we need to understand everything back up here in our model of the world to understand, well, how am I now creating the emotion? So emotional intelligence fits here. Now, from emotional intelligence, that gives us the awareness to then understand and be the observer of, okay, well, what are my fears? What are my limiting beliefs? Where are my clashes? Where are my conflicts? Where are the areas where I'm out of alignment with my true self? That's the ability that emotional intelligence gives you. And as I said, it's only part of the game. The rest of this is now understanding what are all the patterns, things like limiting beliefs, fears, deeply ingrained fears, deeply ingrained conditioning, a lot of negative emotions, maybe trauma from childhood, and a lot of negative habits that we've been cultivating and conditioning for a large part of our life. So we're going to now we've got to go hunting, we've got to go digging deeper to find out, well, what are these attributes, what is the conditioned belief systems that are now driving the thinking that then creates the emotions. So the emotions are a downstream consequence as a result of what's actually stored or installed in our unconscious mind. Now, our unconscious mind is the thing that runs our whole entire body. Our unconscious mind is what drives 95% of our behavior. So our unconscious mind is where everything is stored. It's like the deep software program that's been installed onto our computer, onto our body. Now, when we understand the unconscious mind, we're able to understand what's driving all of our behavior. So it's a really important principle. We obviously don't have time today to drop deep into the unconscious mind and all the facets of the unconscious mind, other than to say it's driving most of our behavior. Because our unconscious mind is the part of us that's beating our heart, it's running our immune system, it's breathing us, and all of our behavior that we indulge in and that we create is created from our unconscious mind. That's a whole other Facebook Live topic that I'm going to drop into. I got your question here before. Great question. How do you go about getting an EQ test? I can do an EQ test for you if you send me a message. So I'm trained in EQ. I have an assessment that you can do. It's really simple. It's an online quiz. It takes you probably less than, I think it's about 15 minutes to complete. And it's really simple. I can then give you an unpack and explain all the different assessment areas, the 5 different pillars of EQ, the scores in each, and then it gives you 50 strategies on how to improve your emotional intelligence. So it's a really awesome test, and I recommend it for every single human being. If you want to be a more professional human being, do it. Do yourself a favor and get yourself an EQ test. So hit me up, drop me a comment if you'd like to have that done, because I can certainly help you out there, and it will make a massive difference in your emotional intelligence and your emotional mastery, your emotional world. So I want to give you some really tangible steps here we've talked about EQ, we've talked about why it's important, we've talked about what it is, we've talked about how we're creating our results, which is all derived from our model of the world. How do we create our world? What's our perspective? What's our belief system that's then generating all of that? So let's make this really tangible. Well, how do we then improve our EQ? Well, the master skill and the most important thing, thanks Heidi, the most important thing is self-awareness. We need to be aware of what's unfolding within us. But then what we need, so the awareness is the space that we create for ourselves to observe what's unfolding. For example, are we driven by fear? Are we driven by resistance? Are we driven by judgment? Are we driven by, those are the parts of the ego. Are we driven by a limiting belief? What are the parts of us that we are being driven by? What is the conditioning? What is the programming that's unfolding within us? So we need to have a heightened level of self-awareness, which is a skill. Self-awareness is a skill that we can cultivate through practices like meditation. Meditation is one of the most powerful practices that anyone can ever do. And it's not about just kind of sitting there in peace and kind of feeling good. The benefit of meditation, there's so many benefits of meditation. There's so much science and research that's gone into meditation now. The major benefit for me, for my money, for all the clients that I'm working with, we cultivate regular meditation practices, is you become aware of what's unfolding within you. You become aware of your limitations. You become aware of your mental blocks. You become aware of the fears. You become aware of all the parts of you that are unfolding. So you can now label them. You can document them. You can describe what's unfolding in your reality. And that's power. Because if you're not aware of what's unfolding and what all the thoughts that you have, and on average we have 70,000 thoughts per day. It's just over 1 per second. We have 70,000 thoughts per day. So if you don't have the self-awareness to recognize most or the majority of what are those thoughts, and are they resourceful, are they unresourceful, are they based out of fear, are they based out of ego, are they based out of coming from our true higher self, where are they based from? If we don't have awareness of where are most of my thoughts coming from, we're living unconsciously. It's like when you drive to work, and because you've driven to work so many times, you don't have to think. You don't have to think about turning left and right. You just do it automatically. Well, if we go through our day without self-awareness, without being presently connected, so I call it present state awareness, being truly tuned in and connected to what we're experiencing, then most of those 70,000 thoughts are happening outside of our awareness. And we could be thinking anything. We could be thinking limitation, we could be thinking fear, we could be thinking anxiety, we can have all these negative thoughts, and if we're not aware of them, then they are driving us. And instead of us controlling and creating our destiny and focusing on what we want, we're just letting the patterns and the programs of our our unconscious mind drive us. So we need to be conscious of our thoughts, otherwise our unconscious mind is going to start just driving us. So our conscious mind is our way to access creating shifts at the deepest unconscious level, which is the source code. Our unconscious mind is the source code of what's driving 95% of the behavior. So we need to get access to uncover and bring to our conscious mind awareness of our unconscious mind. That is emotional mastery. That's the highest level of emotional mastery, when you understand more about your unconscious drivers. What are the unconscious conditioning? What's the unconscious patterns? Where are the elements of the ego that are operating? What are the fears? What are the limitations? What are the memories that you've got from early childhood when you're 3, 4, 5 years old that are still conditioning you and playing out now as an adult? That's the next level beyond and deeper down the emotional mastery rabbit hole. It's a journey well worth the trip. So to make this really tangible, every day I recommend keeping a journal. Now, it's not for the sake of just keeping a journal. The benefit of keeping a journal, the reason why you want to keep a journal, is you want to document your experiences. You want to document, what were the fears that I experienced today? What were the limitations that I experienced today? What were the challenges that I experienced today? Maybe what were the conflicts? What were the elements where I felt uncomfortable? What was the level? Maybe if you felt guilt, sadness, anger, hurt, resentment. If you felt any of those emotions during the day, you want to capture that. You want to keep a record of that and then put on your diagnostic hat and go, hang on, I just experienced a heap of negative emotions today. Let's get to work on unpacking what the hell just happened there. So you can work back up the chain and work out, well, what's my mindset like such that I'm generating thoughts that are then creating negative, disempowering emotions. So we've got to be more intelligent about, let's diagnose what's actually going on. And journaling is one of the most powerful ways to be aware of what just happened in the day. Because as I said before, if we don't journal, if we don't reflect consciously on our experience of life, then we're in a trance. We're just going to go through life destined to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And I think it was Einstein that said, when you do the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result, you guys know the story, it's the definition of insanity. So by documenting all of your experiences and your negative emotions, your fears, your limiting beliefs, and all of that on a daily basis, you're accelerating your evolution of your consciousness, because you're now aware of what's unfolding. You now have a documented example of your experience. So you can work out, hang on, what was I doing? What's my limitations? What's my fears? What's my beliefs in around that, to then overcome that? Because you can't transform what you're not aware of. And if you don't journal and if you don't reflect on your day of what you're experiencing, then you will never become aware of it. You'll just be in a trance, forever doomed to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So I trust that makes sense. I trust I've rammed in the importance of journaling, not because it's a nice thing to do, but because you're getting valuable data. Every day you're getting information reflected at you by your emotional experience. Your emotional experience is the reflection. You are getting a reflection of where you're out of alignment completely. So every negative emotion that you experience, every element where you feel like you're out of alignment, keep note of that. That's gold. You are getting valuable data. Your life is reflecting every single thing that you need to, if you're aware and if you pay attention to what it is. Once you become aware of it, you can then understand it. Once you understand it, you can then make new decisions to move beyond it. But if you're not aware of it in the first place, i.e. if you're missing self-awareness, which is the most powerful skill, which can be cultivated, as I said, through meditation, through setting alarms throughout your day to remind yourself to stay present. I have an alarm that goes off every hour to remind me to stay connected and present. Also doing breathing processes. That's one of the best ways to stay connected and stay present and stay aware, is focusing on your breathing. Because when you're focusing on your breathing, it brings your awareness back to now. So awareness of breath is powerful. So I've got meditation, I've got journaling. Another real powerful way is to actually document and describe the language of your experience. So what did you experience? What's the language in around that? Because for a lot of people, as I said before, people have fuzzy emotional experiences. When I say fuzzy, they don't know what they're feeling. Well, if you don't know what you're feeling, it's very difficult to become aware of it, to then understand it, to move beyond it. It just becomes something that's uncomfortable, something that's fuzzy, something that's preventing you from being the best version of you. Well, when you can label it and define it using language, massive aha moments, you can then understand it and move beyond it. So language creates our reality, and if we don't have language for our reality, then it just remains undefined. It remains in the realm of it just remains undefined. So you want to be able to define your reality. Thanks, Dora. Yeah, awareness is key. So there's some really tangible things to really practice, and when you practice those on a consistent basis, your self-awareness goes through the roof, which means that your awareness goes through the roof, which means that your ability to observe all of your patterns, your programs, your fears, your limiting beliefs goes to a higher level, which means you get access to, I use the metaphor of taking off the handbrake, because everyone is driving through life with a handbrake, right? Whether it be limiting beliefs, fears, there's stuff outside of our awareness that we don't even know is holding us back. Well, when you boost the skill of self-awareness, you're able to become aware of which handbrakes are actually on. And there's multiple handbrakes in multiple different dimensions, multiple contexts, multiple patterns that are playing out that we are unconscious of. And as I said, when we become aware of what is unconscious and bring it to our conscious awareness, we can resolve it, we can become aware of it, we can understand it, and then we can move beyond it. But if we never become aware of it in the first place, we are being run by software. It's like we are being automatically run on a default, which is a very, very disempowering way to be, because we're not even aware of the patterns that we're running. We're just being run like a software program. Input, output. We're able to interrupt the pattern here by having self-awareness, because we can now observe what's unfolding within us. We can observe the limitation, and then we can move beyond it. So very, very powerful. I want to leave it there, guys, because I want to just keep this really short and sharp. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, Bella. Hey, Dora. Yeah, I can certainly do some EQ tests for you. Send me a message. Hook up with you guys, and I can certainly help you out with that. That is not a problem at all. So guys, I also just want to mention I have got my competition running for the next few weeks, which is for my NLP, 5-day NLP practitioner training. So for those of you that want to go in the competition to win a 5-day NLP practitioner, drop in the comments, NLP me baby, yes please. Drop the comments there, NLP me baby, yes please, if you guys want to go in the draw to win an NLP practitioner 5-day training, valued at $3,500. And I am also, for those viewers that are in Perth, I'm running my NLP masterclass this Saturday. So if you want to come along to that event, you're going to get some absolute gold, where I'm taking all this and going to the next level. Emotional intelligence, leadership, influence, how do we master everything in our life? You're welcome, Heidi. It's a pleasure to share this. This is the information. These are the tools. This is the wisdom. This is the knowledge that needs to be shared with everyone, because when everyone understands this, our life and our results and everything within our business goes to a whole new level. So it's a pleasure to share this with you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Please, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, if you have any requests for topics coming up, you guys are the reason why I'm doing this. I'm here to serve. So if you do have questions, comments, please drop them in, send me a message, reach out, connect with me. I'm always here to help, always here to offer whatever suggestions and insights and assistance I can. This is what I'm here for. Trust you guys have got value tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege as always. Thank you for joining me for Transformation Tuesday for emotional mastery, emotional intelligence. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next Tuesday. All the best, lots of love. Wishing you guys an amazing week, and thank you for tuning in, everyone. Thanks guys. Thanks so much for the love. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye for now.